So for those of you who don't know, the AKC ruined the dog. They just fucking destroyed the species for a lot of different reasons. Here's a good one. Puppy mills. They love puppy mills because they get tons and tons of money from them because of the registrations from all the dogs that they produce. Amoral. I don't know its origins. I suspect it's something that popped out of high society, and it was just a bunch of shitty rich people got together with a bad idea, and they were like, "Oh, the dog's supposed to look this way." But anyway, who knows? But it's horrible. It's an evil enterprise, and what they've done is they've changed breeding standards radically, where dogs are being bred for form over function. So if you think about behavior, there's no one gene that codes for behavior X, right? It's a whole bunch of genetic predispositions that factor into a particular behavior, because behavior is so complex, right? So when you breed for behavioral traits, you get a much wider gene pool, whereas when you breed for form and only form, you get a much narrower gene pool, because that now what you're getting is you can select for kind of like a 1-to-1 gene to trait ratio. So there's I believe a single gene that codes for eye color, for instance. So you have a much narrower gene pool, and also you have it's way easier to select for a single trait or one or two traits. Single trait selection and breeding is one of the worst things you can do, and it's one of the primary reasons why we're getting dogs with all kinds of crazy neurological disorders. You see a lot in labs. It's a good example. So they were selectively bred for just two things for a long time: docility and high pain threshold. And that was actually the fault of, I believe, working dog people, because they wanted the dog to be able to go into the waters in Newfoundland and to retrieve game with a soft bite. So they wanted a docile dog with a high pain threshold. Overemphasis on those traits produced a dog with a lot of neurological disorders, and that's what you're seeing today. I don't know if it's gotten better in recent years, but it's a big problem, or was a big problem, at least with labs. Cavalier King Charles, I mean, it's horrible what's been done to that breed. The skull is too small, and this is a huge problem you see with dogs that have been miniaturized. Not this specific problem, but just neurological disorders, just genetic defects. You would never get creatures like that exist in nature. So their skulls are too small for their brains, and they end up getting these horrible problems where they're just in terrible pain. I know they get seizures from it, but I forget the name of it, but literally the brain's pressing up against their skull, and they just flip out, and they're in horrible pain and eventually die. So that's what the AKC, and this is a product. This is aided and abetted by the American Kennel Club, okay? Because they started really emphasizing breeding for form over function. So guess what? My favorite breed, the Cane Corso. This is a highly territorial, aggressive breed. Okay, they are not for your novice dog owner. It's just they're complex. Okay, they have a high level of territorial aggression. They have high levels of defensive or protective aggression, and they have spatial issues. They do not want to interact with strangers if they've been properly bred. Okay, they're aloof. They're suspicious. They can pick up pretty quickly on differentiating between friend and foe. So the ones that have been really well bred have a really nice on-off switch, but this is not a breed that should be expected to have a stranger go up, open its mouth, and be able to look at it. It's just, it's amazing that that's overlooked in the show ring. Okay, now in the show ring, if the judge comes up, examines the dog's mouth, because they have to make sure that the bite is perfect, right? Because that's fucking important. Not the dog's ability to work, but you know, its aesthetics are perfect. So it's arbitrary. Aesthetics are perfect. So the judge comes up, fucks with the dog's mouth. The dog bites him. Guess what? Dog's disqualified. Well, they're supposed to bite people that go up and fuck with their face. They're Cane Corsos. It's like, oh geez, you know, I got this wolf and he bit me. It's weird. Like, yeah, that's sort of what they do, man. This is a rustic breed. It's an ancient breed. They are not really supposed to be cool with strangers coming up and fucking with their teeth. You know, and frankly, I don't think that should be imposed on any fucking dog. It's crazy. So what they're doing is, unconsciously, they're selecting Cane Corsos in the ring, and this is not just the AKC. It's across the board and show lines. But what they're doing is they're selecting Cane Corsos with boxer genetics, because there's a lot of boxer blood in Cane Corso lines for a lot of different reasons. It's complicated, but they basically had started being introduced to soften the breed. So what you're going to start to see is boxers are a mess genetically. Look at them 50 years ago, 80 years ago, pictures of them, and now look at pictures of them today. They didn't always look like that, with their face all smushed in. They have seizures. They have all kinds of neurological issues that Cane Corsos do not. Cane Corsos are generally an extremely healthy breed. And you're going to get Corsos that they already look, in America at least, and a fair amount of them in Italy, like boxers too much. But you're going to get increasing boxer genetics, aesthetics, but way more importantly, the boxer neurological disorders, because these judges want to be able to go inside these dogs' mouths, and it should not happen. It should not be. They shouldn't be show dogs. They're working dogs. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why this breed is going to be absolutely just putrefied because of the AKC. Now that they got introduced, I don't know, 5-10 years ago, it was already on a downhill trajectory. There are a couple of breed traditionalists out there. Mike Sotile, his junior, his father was the guy who introduced the breed to the country initially. You know, and there are other people who are trying to preserve the genetic integrity of the breed. But, I mean, they've got an uphill battle to face, because once you get dogs that have had their line essentially corrupted, they get papers very easily, and then it gets introduced in the gene pool. It's very, very difficult to tell which have those genetics and which don't. You want to keep boxer genetics out of the Cane Corso lines, because, like I said, the boxers have already been basically destroyed as a breed. And if you don't believe me, you can look up neurological disorders, seizures, epilepsy in boxers, and I mean, and also look at the pictures and compare them. I mean, and that's the big problem. Now, look, it's a softer breed, and people like that, but I'm telling you, I'd rather have a healthy breed. Okay, first and foremost, and frankly, for the work that Cane Corsos are supposed to do, which they basically livestock guardians, but protectors of the home to estates, whatever. They're not supposed to be friendly. Okay, it's not a reasonable expectation for strangers to be able to come up in any dog's mouth, open it up, and examine it. I think that's ridiculous. But particularly with Corsos, so what you're doing is you are creating, or you're selecting for dogs that are the anti-Corso, essentially. And it's horrible. You know, you can say, oh, why would anyone want an aggressive dog? For working purposes. How about that? You want to fucking, you want to, the police, I mean, you know, everyone hates the cops now, but like, if the cops are going to come in and help you out with a dog, you want that dog to be a pussy? You know, like you? You know? Well, aggression, it's useful in certain contexts, you know. They evolved with it for a reason, so did we. Anyway, they're gonna ruin the breed, and if they, I mean, they mostly, it's already well underway, but it's gonna only get worse, and that's one small reason why. So just, if you're interested in Cane Corso, stay the fuck away from show lines. It's, dogs in general don't go near a show line. If the whatchamacallit, the breeder is big into the AKC, just get the fuck out of there. Go to someone who produces working line dogs. Even if you're a family and you're like, I don't want a crazy dog, just go pick the fucking calm dog in the litter. And maybe the dog will be a little bit more work, but you're gonna have way less health problems, which means the dog will have, and the dog's probably gonna have a much better temperament. Just do a little work with him. It's not that bad, I'm telling you. You know, like, you can channel, you know, those working instincts in a way that's very time efficient, and it might be a little bit more labor intensive, but, you know, just become a slightly more active person. It's not, or don't get a dog, you know. But if you are into the Corso and you're like into show lines, you're a fucking piece of shit. I met these guys once and they saw Dewey, and they were like, oh yeah, oh, Scandifio, yeah, no, they produce like those, yeah, like for the protection stuff, you know. And they were like either judges, they were heavily involved in, I believe it was AKC, but some type of bullshit, you know, show ring stuff. And they were like, oh yeah, well, I guess Vin Diesel got a dog from him and he bit someone. Oh, Cane Corso, really? No kidding. Well, at least that dog wasn't a broken one. You're not supposed to be nice. Sorry. So, you know, if you're selecting for, which is what happens, is, oh my God, he was a champion. Everyone wants one now. If you're selecting for traits that allow a person to go into the dog's mouth and open it up, you're selecting for boxer genetics, and you're selecting for a dog that is way too docile. It's just not in line with the type of work that these breeds were, that this breed was traditionally used for. And you want to keep it in line with working standards. So that's it. It really disgusts me, and it's my favorite breed, and they're done. So I don't know, I'll probably just be totally unoriginal, and I'll be a Malinois guy, I'm sure, soon, because those dogs, they don't give a fuck. Over in Europe, they keep the pedigrees open. They're not even, and I like that approach to breeding, which is they'll throw like a pit bull in the line. The Malinois, they'll get too small, so they might even like throwing like a fucking Great Dane once in a blue moon into the line, just to get the dogs bigger. And the whole idea is, can the dog work? And the way they look is incidental, largely, you know. I like that approach to breeding. So that's, and they're not part of the AKC. So I guess that, and they're incredibly healthy dogs, you know. They're just nuts, you know, but so of Corso. So I'll have to switch over to a different kind of crazy, I guess, because AKC got a hold of my guys, and well, I'm sure at some point I'll get one of Mike Sotile's dogs. Hopefully, you know. But all right, that's it. Stay away from those show lines in general, but particularly with the Corsos. Shouldn't be able to go into that dog's mouth.